The hallway was buzzing with noise, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, laughter echoing from every corner. But through all the chaos walked a girl so quiet most students barely noticed her. Her name was Emma. Thin-framed, shoulders slightly hunched, she kept her books pressed tightly to her chest like a shield. She was the type who never raised her hand in class, never sat at the center of a group, and never drew attention to herself. To most, she was background scenery, another shadow in the crowded halls. But what no one knew was that beneath her silence was a storm. The bullies noticed her precisely because she was invisible to everyone else. To them, invisibility meant weakness, and weakness meant prey. One in particular, Derek, the tall, loud one who strutted through the halls like he owned the school, had made Emma his routine target. His father was a local businessman who donated to the school, and teachers often looked the other way when Derek stirred trouble. He walked with arrogance that dripped from him like sweat, surrounded by a small gang of followers who laughed at every cruel joke he cracked. Derek liked easy victims, and Emma was perfect. With a smirk that stretched wider than his conscience, he would stick his leg out when she walked, slap her books out of her arms, and laugh as she scrambled to gather them. His friends joined in, feeding off his cruelty like hyenas circling a lion they mistook for a lamb. Emma had endured it for months. Every insult, every shove, every laugh behind her back, she absorbed it all in silence. The more they tormented her, the quieter she became, like a shell closing tighter around itself. She told herself she could handle it, that they weren't worth the fight. But silence doesn't mean surrender. That day, the hallway was packed tighter than usual between classes. Students spilled from classrooms, chattering and shoving, their voices colliding into a roar. Emma walked slowly, trying to make herself smaller than she already was. She moved like a ghost through the chatter, weaving carefully, her eyes fixed on the floor. Derek spotted her from across the hall, grinning as he elbowed one of his buddies. "Watch this," he said, his voice dripping with mischief. Emma felt the hairs on the back of her neck rise. She knew the steps behind her, heavy and deliberate. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Her grip on her books tightened, her pulse thudding in her ears. Before she could move, a sharp sting exploded across her cheek. Derek's hand had connected with her face, hard. The slap cracked so loudly it silenced the hallway for a fraction of a second. Gasps echoed. Students turned, eyes wide. Some laughed nervously, some whispered. Emma froze, her cheek burning, her grip trembling on her books. And then something inside her broke. Not the way Derek expected. Not tears, not fear. But a leash, one that had been holding back a side of her nobody in that school knew existed. Emma let her books fall, the thud against the tile like the opening drumbeat of a war song. Slowly, she lifted her head, her eyes locked on Derek's. They weren't the timid, downcast eyes he'd seen before. They were cold, steady, and burning with something dangerous. "Uh-oh," one of his friends muttered. Derek laughed, trying to cover the flicker of unease in his chest. "What are you gonna do, quiet girl? Cry?" Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her hand shot out, faster than anyone could process. She gripped Derek's wrist and twisted. The sound that followed was sharp and horrifying, a snap, like a thick branch breaking under pressure. Derek screamed, dropping to his knees, clutching his elbow that now bent in a direction no human arm should. His scream cut through the hallway. Like a siren, students stumbling back, some covering their mouths in shock. Emma stood over him, her chest heaving, her fingers curling and uncurling like they were itching for more. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She was terrifyingly calm. Whispers exploded all around. What just happened? Did she break his arm? No, she broke his elbow. Look. Derek's friends backed up, their bravado evaporating like mist under fire. No one stepped in to defend him. No one dared. The predator had just been turned into prey in front of the entire school. Emma didn't look at the crowd. She didn't care about their whispers or their stares. She just looked down at Derek writhing on the floor, his arrogance shattered as thoroughly as his elbow. Footsteps thundered from down the hall. Mr. Hanley, the math teacher, arrived, pushing through the stunned crowd. "What's going on here?" His eyes widened as he saw Derek screaming and Emma standing tall, her cheek still red from the slap. "Nothing," Emma said quietly, her voice steady, chilling in its control. "Just self-defense." But what no one there knew was that Emma's silence had always hidden something. Her father, a retired military combat instructor, had raised her differently from the other kids in that school. After losing her mother young, Emma had grown up with drills instead of bedtime stories, discipline instead of lullabies. Every night she practiced strikes, holds, and takedowns in the barn behind their house. Her father drilled her until her body moved on instinct, until her muscles remembered even when her mind didn't want to. He always told her one thing: never start a fight, but if someone forces you into one, end it. For years, she had listened quietly, practiced silently, and carried that discipline like armor no one could see. She never wanted to use it, until Derek forced her hand. The hallway buzzed with chaos as Mr. Hanley crouched over Derek, calling for the nurse. Students whispered louder, some pulling out their phones to record, but none dared step too close. Emma bent down calmly, picked up her books, and dusted them off. Her movements were so precise, so unshaken, that it chilled the bystanders more than Derek's screams. One boy whispered to another, "I thought she was just some quiet nerd." "Not anymore," the other replied, his voice shaky. "She's something else." Derek's groans filled the hallway, his pride bleeding out with every whimper. His friends didn't help him. They just stood frozen, too afraid to even meet Emma's eyes. She walked forward slowly, and the crowd parted like waves, giving her a path. Nobody laughed anymore. Nobody whispered loud enough for her to hear. She had gone from invisible to unforgettable in the span of seconds. Teachers rushed in, pulling Derek onto a stretcher, whispering frantically into radios. Emma kept walking, her cheeks still stinging, but her stride steady. She didn't need to explain herself. She didn't need to justify what she had done. The entire school had seen it with their own eyes. By the end of the day, rumors had spread through every hallway, every classroom. Some said she had military training. Some swore she was an undercover martial artist. Others whispered she was dangerous, not to be messed with. Emma sat in the principal's office later, her father beside her. The principal looked nervous, wringing his hands as he spoke. "This is serious. Derek's parents are threatening to file charges." Her father's eyes were hard as stone. "My daughter was slapped across the face. She defended herself. You know the law. If they want to press charges, they can, but I'll fight it, and win." Emma sat silently, staring at the floor. She didn't regret it, not one bit. The next day at school, everything was different. The same students who once ignored her now moved out of her way. Derek's friends avoided eye contact, their laughter replaced with silence when she passed. No one shoved her locker. No one touched her books. Emma never spoke about what happened. She didn't brag, she didn't gloat, she went back to being quiet. But now, her silence meant something else entirely. It meant power.